I think of photographers that sometimes will show, I'm not dropping anyone, but
it's okay. It's all good.
Think of photographers who will do like these, just these big magazine covers.
Yes.
And will be critiqued like, well, why does this person looking like this?
Yes.
But they are well known and renowned photographers.
Privilege is all around you. It's useless until you recognize it. So it's time to stop feeling guilty and figure out how to use your privilege to make an impact.
I'm Amber Cabral, and this is Guilty Privilege. Welcome back to another episode of Guilty Privilege. My name is Amber Cabral, and today I had the opportunity to talk to my favorite photographer. Her name is Danielle Finney. She is the owner of DFinney Photography, and she is a natural light photographer. And also, she is responsible for this beautiful branding that you see for this podcast. She has taken my pictures for the last, probably 6 or 7 years. And I love every single time she does it. We're going to talk today about the equity in photography, why it's important to her to make sure that folks are represented in natural light the way we see them, and also a little bit about what it's like to do business when you are also navigating mental health. Thanks for joining me, Danny.
Thanks for having me, girl.
I am so happy you're here, Danny.
I'm happy to be here.
Very excited to talk to you. I also feel like just in general, having conversations with people who are typically behind the camera, on camera, is a very nice, let's just say, way of like experiencing some levity. Because I've definitely been on the other side of your lens. And now you're joining me on this side, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to start out just really like talking about the skill of photography. Okay. I think you are an amazing, amazing photographer. You did the cover art for this podcast. I use your pictures almost exclusively online. Like your work is, it's amazing all the time. I'm going to say that a lot more. But I think having the skill of taking photography or understanding photography is super important, especially now when digital cameras are so accessible. We have them on our phones. We've had people literally, I got a wedding invitation the other day where people were like, you cannot bring your phone in because the people are in the way. Everybody thinks they're, able to take pictures now. Cameras in general are accessible. So even if it's not on your phone. So now folks are just kind of picking it up and doing it. How did you know that you had a skill that I so thoroughly enjoy? But how did you know by comparison of just like, it's accessible to everybody right now?
So that's a great question. And I tell you what, one thing that comes to mind, just as you said, say this, is that for a long time early, I didn't consider myself a photographer. It took a while for me to claim that. I guess once I explained like how I got into it, that may make sense. So I got into photography through graphic design. 2009. Actually, 2009 is the marker for the start of my business, but I was taking pictures and doing design work and stuff prior to that. So let's say around about the time that I graduated, was in college. So that's 2005, those early years. Yeah. I got into photography strictly to edit photos. I loved the design aspect of things. So I was like doing funky edits and doing things with, I don't even know, what are those things called? Let's say scrapbook kind of edits, like digital scrapbooks.
Gotcha.
I did like programs, business cards, like all of that stuff. And so honestly, initially, my business was actually called DFinney Photography and Design, because I did both and I loved both. Only did I like switch over once I realized I think I like the photography a little bit more. So how did I know? Let me tell you the short version of the story. I got laid off from my job in 2009, and that's why that's my official marker.
Right.
And the recession was happening, and it was a little bit hard for me to find something else. And so because I was already shooting on the side, I said, well, let me do this a little bit more since I don't have a job right now until I find something else.
Yeah.
But because
it was a side hustle.
Exactly. Yeah. But because it kept me busy and I really enjoyed it, I was like, well, maybe we might have something
Many
here.
of us start businesses this way, by the way.
Yeah.
This is my side hustle. Oh, wait a minute. I actually need this money.
Yeah. And I tell people a lot that personally, because of how I am, I don't think that I would have made the leap if I still had a job. So I'm grateful for how that worked out, because I'm always the kind of person who's like, I got to have all my ducks in a row and feel like I need to have the answers. So because of who I am, I would not have started if I still had my full-time job.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of just, once I was in the pool, so to speak, then I was just kind of figuring it out. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll try this and I'll try that.
Right.
And so I experimented, and that's how I grew. You know, my style was what's the word? Improved, if you will. I honed in on the things that I liked. And yeah, so the feedback that I would get from people was really helpful, because I may like something, but because of the kind of work that I do, like, my client needs to like it. My client needs to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So that's the long and short answer to the question.
Yeah. No, fantastic. I think it sounds like what really was critical for you discovering that you were good was that you had a chance to explore. Like you played around in some spaces. I remember when I first started following you, you used to remind people like, I do not do wedding photography. I don't enjoy it. And I was like, oh wow, but these pictures are amazing. So I can imagine people probably go, well, can you come shoot all of the things in my life? And you're like, no, not actually.
Right.
So
I mean, and I tried. I did experiment.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, you have to like try those different things to then see what it is that you actually like. Because in the beginning, you do want to shoot everything until you realize, well, I don't really get light up the same way when I'm doing this. Because when I tried newborn photography, man, let me tell you that newborn photographers are just blessings. Those are angels.
Okay.
Because that's a lot of work.
Yes. And they're adorable.
And the babies are beautiful.
But you have no control of the baby. None at all. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. So one of the reasons I like to shoot with you is that, and I had shot with a lot of different photographers before you, some of whom I am still friends with and love dearly. I continue to shoot with you because you make me so comfortable. Like you first of all, I think you are I called you precise when we were off camera. Yeah. You're very precise. You take care of things. You're thoughtful about the client experience. All of that is absolutely part of it. But also just generally, like, the actual taking of the photos, the experience of that feels so thoughtful and intentional. And you really create a sense of comfort for me that I don't have to wonder like, oh man, this is my first time wearing these pants, as many of us do when we're taking pictures, right? And being like, do I look right? Is it okay? Like, I don't have to have any of that with you versus my experiences with other photographers. And also just like, even your approach to posing and like, I love it. I would love for you to just share, like, what are some recommendations that you have either for other photographers or even for people that are trying to get their pictures taken? What do we need to be thinking about when it comes to taking photos and actually loving the experience?
Yes. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a lot. And when I say it's a lot, I don't mean to say that in an overwhelming way. My method and my process was formed over many moons. Like, it took a while to get to this point. And because of that, that's why I feel like it's so thorough. We touch on so many different things beforehand to make sure that when we get together the day of and during our time, we're firing on all cylinders.
Yes. And
we know that your wardrobe is going to work because we have discussed that previously. Not just discussed it, I had you take pictures.
Yes.
I always ask that people try their wardrobe on in advance with the undergarments that they're going to wear. Yes. Because that makes a difference. You need to see how everything is going to fit and lay, sit, stand, turn around. You need to be comfortable in all of those different ways. A lot of times what happens is people put an outfit on and they stand in front of the mirror in that one position,
holding their stomach,
holding their stomach, and they go, "Yes, okay, this is good. I like this." Yes, that's not what we do on a photo shoot.
It's not.
I need movement. I need for you to be comfortable when I ask you to sit down or to lean over a little bit or just move.
Right.
So that's one of the things. So that wardrobe piece is super important. What I'm trying to give you are, I guess, like actionable things that everyone can do, because when we talk about how thorough my process is, like, I know everyone is not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's time consuming. Not only because it's time consuming, but some people just don't care about the things that I care about.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you may look at a picture and be like, oh, everything is so perfect and everything's in place. It's not an accident. It's because we took care of those things. Right. Before you even start the process, you need to know why you need to take pictures. Like, what are your session goals? What's the reason?
Yes.
Or what are these pictures going to be for?
I want to say this at this point. You send me that form every time we take pictures.
Every time.
Every single time. And every time I'm like, Dang, I don't know. But it makes me think. It really does. My answers for, I think there's a question you have that's sort of along the lines of like, you know, what do you want your brand to feel like? Or, you know what I'm saying? Something. And every single time I have to stop and go like, oh, feel like. Okay, when someone experiences my brand, what do I want it to feel like? You know what I mean? And we don't consider that, I think, in a typical like, oh, I'm going to take pictures. Yeah. We're thinking exactly what you said. I need to make sure my looks are cute.
Right, I'm cute.
We put them on, right? We put them on in the mirror. We look online for a makeup artist and we're ready. That's it. But like, you are 100% right. That form does make a difference. It makes you think critically about the photos.
Yes. So that's the first piece. Like before, I mentioned wardrobe first because we were thinking about that. But even as it pertains to like family photos or just because your goals, of course, are not going to be the same as they would be like if you were taking brand photos. But it's still good to kind of, I guess, like have a reason. Like, why do you want to take these pictures? And a lot of times the reason that my clients will give for things like that are, you know, maybe it's been a while. Yeah. We want to capture the kids as they are now. And that helps because then when I go into the session, I know, okay, we really want to highlight the kids. Yeah. We really want to highlight their dynamic. Right. We really want to highlight the special relationship that this daddy-daughter dynamic. Yes. So those are the things that I'm able to capture. When I do ask those pre-session questions, and it helps to guide them along the process because your average person is not thinking about that. Yeah. So I feel like I'm getting a little
No, I think it's super helpful. No, that what you're saying makes sense because it's like, before I talk to a client in my business, I want to know certain things. I want to know, you know, first of all, who you are. So send me your website, share your socials. Let me take a look at that on my own. But also, like, what do you want from us? I really like about the intake form is now that I'm thinking about it, we do the same thing. So I don't think I would have thought about what my pictures were for. But I'm imagining that process also helps me say, okay, wait a minute. What kinds of photos do I want? So I am going to use them. Yeah. Because I've also taken pictures with people and walked away and been like, these are nice, but I don't really want to post these.
Right. What will I use these for?
I'm just going to keep them. I mean, they're good, but I don't know that they fit with what it is that I'm messaging at this time. Where I think that form forces people the same way it does in my business, where we're like, okay, do you have a budget? Do you just want a conversation? Are you interested in something related to Amber's books or, you know, any of those things? That it makes a big difference. It makes a difference for me and for the client.
You were asking about, I guess, like how clients or not clients, but if you're looking to take pictures, what are some of the things that can be helpful? So we talked about the session goals. We talked about wardrobe, like making sure you try stuff on in advance. Yep. One of the other things too that I super recommend, like you need to make sure you're shooting with a photographer that you will be comfortable with. Yes. And that can't be overstated. And so here's the thing, because we are in the age of social media, like a lot of times people will, you know, share more about their like personalities or, you know, maybe reviews or just things like that. So you could or should, I should say, get a feel for what someone's personality might be. Yeah. And that can help kind of guide the decision. Of course, you don't know for sure until you know, work with them. If it's not somebody that you feel confident that you will be comfortable with and trust them, like that is a really important part of the dynamic because you can't allow yourself to relax. You can't relax if you're not comfortable and confident that the person knows what they're doing.
Right. Or even just that they are comfortable for you. Like you were the first woman photographer I shot with. And I remember that. Yes, you were the first woman photographer. I literally have only taken photos with men otherwise. And I feel like you see and think about things respectfully, gentlemen, that I don't feel like male photographers catch. Absolutely. And so there were elements of that to me were so obvious in your photos. Like just even motions that for me, it's almost like you capture the in-between things. The things that people remember me for that I have no idea are even happening. But people who know me would describe me by those things. Like it's a very interesting thing. And so, but I also feel like that comes down to, again, like the intentionality of saying, am I comfortable with this photographer? Because I'm going to show you all the in-between things. You're going to catch me laughing randomly or, you know, whatever my little typical hand gestures and all that, all that's going to come out. But if I'm not comfortable,
it won't. You'll be more reserved, and like you need to be comfortable,
posy,
so we can get those that genuine, those warm expressions, those things that you don't allow yourself to do with someone that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I love
that's
that.
really important.
Super important. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about skin tone and color because color is your thing. Like first of all, you're a natural light photographer, so I do want you to talk a little about that. And then I want you to talk about your use of color. And I'm going to ask some probing questions around that just because I think it's one of the things that makes your work so unique. I'd love to just kind of get a sense of like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Because literally we have pictures regularly where we're like, why are the people so ashen? Why are the clothes so dull? What is happening with the background? Like it doesn't seem to be just the style aesthetic. It seems to be something missing. Yeah. I would love to just get your insight on like your use of color, your process, what you're willing to share, obviously, and why that's important. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And if you happen to also be looking for tools to help you navigate tough conversations, to be able to show up as a more impactful ally, or just to have resources about how to navigate equity in your world, I've written 2 books. My first book is called Allies and Advocates. And this book is really focused on helping you show up as a more impactful ally. It has actual tactics and tips and things that you can practice to help you get there, both for yourself and for others. My second book is called Say More About That. Now, Say More About That is more about helping you to speak up, to push back, to challenge, to be able to have those conversations that sometimes get a little bit difficult. And in fact, I've given you actual scripts to help you to be able to do that. So if you're interested in just having a few extra resources in your pocket to be able to help you to navigate any of those things, you can go pick up those books anywhere where you buy books, or you can pop down into the show notes and click the links and buy them there. Back to the episode.
There's so much that I can say about this, but one thing that I think I'll say is missing and why we see images that look the way that they do in the wild, it's a lack of care.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why I say that is because like if you cared enough, like you can see a picture or someone in front of you and then, see someone in front of you and then you see a picture of them. And you see a clear distinction.
Yes.
And it's like, do you not care to try to make those things
look alike? I mean, it's almost like people frame it like it's surgery, like it's an impossible task. Like cameras are not made to capture orange or skin tone or.
And hold on, let me not even say that it's not just a lack of care. Honestly, I do think it is a lack of skill as well. Yeah. So the reason why I say that is because if you are only used to working with lighter skin tones, i.e., white people, Asian, whatever of the, your skin tone on the lighter end of the spectrum, then you will get used to doing things a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so then if you are then now needing to shoot someone on the darker end of the spectrum, that method is not transferable. Yeah. And so the funny thing, not funny, of course, but the funny thing is that this is a concern that I've also heard of or I'm aware of as it pertains to makeup and hair artists as well. Like, why is it that only the artists of color need to know how to work with everybody? Right. But if you're not an artist of color, you like, oh yeah, I don't need to know how to do black hair. I don't even know how to make brown skin look good. Exactly. In the Black photographer's case, I would say it is a benefit, if you will, because that's kind of where we start and where our skills are honed. Right. And so that skill is transferable. Yeah. At least I think so. Right. And then I think it also is a matter of taste. Mm-hmm. Because some people do like images that kind of tend to look a little more blue or ashy, if you will, like lower contrast. But those images don't look as poor on lighter skin. Right. And so that style may work well on that end of the spectrum. Right. But when you do transfer that to browner skin tones, that's when it looks ashy and it's like, that's not good. Yes. I think of photographers that sometimes will show, I'm not dropping anyone, but it's okay. It's all good. Think of photographers who will do like these, just these big magazine covers. Yes. And will be critiqued like, well, why does this person looking like this? Yes. But they are well-known and renowned photographers. Mm-hmm. But that skill that they have that looks good on some skin tones doesn't look good on all. Right. So I think it's those things. That it's definitely, it's taste, skill, and a lack of care. Yeah.
I hate that that's the answer. I mean, but it's equity matter, right? So like I have not shot photos with anyone that was not a person of color. And I don't think I've ever walked away disappointed with the color of my photos. My skin tone even, I haven't been disappointed with.
Like, I guess like my process or natural light photography and all of that. So
yes, natural light. Please.
What I have found, I do feel like I ended up in natural light photography because it's quote unquote easier. And I say that quote unquote because I know it. Other people who know studio photography will be like, what? It's easy. You just set the light in. But for me, studio photography gives me anxiety. Like even these lights, I'm like, man, what's the science behind this? This is cool. Right. It's like a foreign world to me.
Yes.
And I do want to learn it. It doesn't light me up.
Right.
And so I like natural light because natural light is dynamic.
Yes.
It's sunny. It's cloudy. It's overcast. It's partly cloudy. It's partly like all those things. And not just the actual light that's coming from the sun, but how it reflects off of certain buildings or these just... I love it.
You have a light thing, which is why it's so interesting that you don't like use lights. You're like, not that kind of light thing. That's not the way I want to do it. You just call my attention to the, every time I shoot with you, this happens. We're like outside. We usually end up doing something outside at some point. And you're always like, ooh, step 2 paces to the right or and I'm like, what are you looking at? Like, cause I just see very often I'm like, I see shadows. Like, how is this the right place? But you have this really magical, like, that's it. Do that. That's it. But not in a do that, like, what did I do again kind of way? But like almost like a moment ago you were doing this and you were talking about, can you just talk about that again? And you are just behind the camera doing the amazing thing. It's incredible. But it is very clearly a light thing because you make it crystal clear, like, oh no, the lighting. And it's so interesting that for you, that doesn't translate to this.
No, it does not.
So,
let me tell you why. Because with studio lights, you need to move the lights like around the person to get the look that you want.
Okay.
Versus with what I do, I move the person to accommodate the light.
Okay.
And for me, that feels easier because I can see it. I'm like, okay, cool. This works well. Turn slightly, not so well.
Right.
That works best for me. And it feels a little bit, quote unquote, easier. So I'm able to see the glow, if you will.
Yeah.
And even if it's not all the way there when I capture in camera, because I know what I want the final picture to look like. I know exactly what I need to do when I go edit.
Got it.
So I'm like, oh, let's bring that up a little bit more, tone that down a little bit. Like I love editing. That's another fun part of it for me too.
So I think loving editing is great and important. I can't tell you how many times I've taken photos of people and it took weeks to get the work back. I have also had the experience of like, you're really good for like, you'll capture something and you'll be like gushing and you'll call me over like, look at this, and I'm like, wow. And to me, the photo looks great. I'm like, how did you catch that? It's amazing already. But you're like, still going to come behind, still touch it, still make adjustments. You send me like my proofs and I usually can't tell what you've done to my finals. I cannot tell the difference. For real. You are not a nip tuck photographer. So you'll do a slight.
You in a little bit. You'll
do a slight, but nothing that feels like you'll, we all hate when you're sitting and you had a random little part right there. You'll push that, but like no one's going to notice that unless it's there, right?
I'm not doing any body magic. No. I'll just a little,
Exactly. So to me, to my untrained, yes, I'm walking around in my body, but I don't see myself. Right? It doesn't look different than what you showed me when we were live. Like I can't see the flaws in either one. And then also, I can also imagine, on the other side of this, when people are really thinking about their photos being taken, one of the things that I feel like you do really well that I feel like also plays into this light thing is you are really thinking about even what, to your point about the wardrobe and all that, all these are connected. What color are you wearing? Let me think about where we're going to be. And that shows up when we get there.
Yeah.
So you're talking to me and it's like, okay, I walked past this. I thought it would look really great. I knew you were going to have on that yellow. Now we have this experience and I'm like, it's
curated.
It's curated.
Yeah.
That's it. It's curated. So that leads me to another question and feel free to chime in, hop around, whatever. We have lots of things. I'm having all the mental bursts right now. So there's that. But specifically, I want to talk about the fact that you shoot a lot of Black women. And it feels like you were like at the forefront of that. Like there were, at least not in my search, a lot of photographers who were focused on Black women and presenting us in our work. Like I can remember you did a series on makers, and like you've been very intentional about showing women, Black women in their element, the ways that they look great, you know, the things that they're winning at. And you're even thoughtful about, as we are clients with you, you're even thoughtful about like, how do you need photography work now, right? Like you've hit me up at different times and been like, hey, I know this was a tough year for you, but let's still capture, right? Like you're very thoughtful in that way. I would love to hear you just talk about how important it's been for you to work with Black women. Like, you know, did you intentionally prioritize that? And why has it mattered, and how's that impacted your business?
As a Black woman.
Right. As a Black woman, that's a great, yes.
I, not only that, but being like born and raised in PG County.
Yeah.
I've always been surrounded by Black people.
Right.
Black women, Black men, just Black people.
Yep.
So that was not a stretch for me initially because that's who was around me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. And it just fit. I will say that this, I don't think you asked this, but it's a thought that comes to mind. Like when my business was new, one of the things somebody said to me, a friend of mine, auntie figure, just, you know, she's older than me.
Right.
She was showing one of her coworkers my website. And the coworker was a white woman. And the woman said, oh, but she only works with Black people. And so she told me this, and I felt so like, it wasn't even a thought that I had at the time, but I felt like, who else thinks this way? Like, I don't want anybody to feel excluded.
Right.
So.
Right, which is not often considered on the other side, speaking of equity, but yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the episode. And in fact, if you are, you can bring me to your organization or event to help you bring conversations like this to life in your workspaces. This is something I do for a living. I do coaching, I do training, I do executive consulting, whatever it is that you might need as it relates to trying to figure out how to activate allyship or equity in your space. It's probably something I can support. So if you're interested in how we can work together, you can reach out to me at cabralco.com or pop down into the show notes and click the link, book a discovery call, and we will chat with you soon. Back to the show.
So because I felt that way, I kind of started, I don't know how to word this, but I went on an intentional, like, I needed to have faces other than brown and Black faces on my website.
Right.
So I was looking around like, well, what other ethnicities do I know? Because it was really just Black people.
Right, because you grew up in PG County. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
So I went, like, I was on Instagram, and I think at the time, I don't even know if this site still exists, but Model Mayhem, where I would like reach out and, you know, try to find models of different ethnicities so I could like shoot them and show the range. Because I get it if that's your concern, like, oh, well, maybe this person won't be able to photograph me well.
Exactly.
So if that's the legitimate concern, I wanted to put those concerns to rest.
Yes.
After I did that, I realized, well, I didn't really like the reasoning for that, or like what spawned that decision.
Yes.
I wanted it to kind of happen, I guess, like in a more organic way.
Right.
So over the years, this is more like, I don't know, some years after that conversation happened. I realized, well, what's wrong with being a Black photographer?
Right.
I had that kind of thought.
Epiphany almost.
Like, well, who else is shooting us in the way that I'm shooting?
Right.
I mean, you know, yes, there are other photographers who are doing their thing with Black women, Black families, but all of that. But I said, but I am doing my thing.
Yeah.
So I leaned into that, and then especially felt good when Black women would reach out to me and say that they wanted to work with me because of how good I made them look.
Yes.
And I loved that. And so, so I leaned into that. So I'm like, I want to, I don't even know where this came from, but I love that it came some years ago. The thought came to me and I was like, see yourself in beautiful light.
Yes.
And I freaking love that.
Right.
Because yes, like as we talked about before, light is my thing. And yeah, like I want to showcase you in your best light.
Right.
I don't want you to be worried about, oh, I have a pimple, or I feel like I gained a few pounds, or my hair is not laying right, or I'm going to take care of all of that.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Now, that doesn't mean it comes to me not prepared.
Listen, don't come with your makeup not in order. Don't arrive with, the edges not laid at all. Like, we got to try.
I'm gonna fix you up.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna do all the work.
Right, exactly.
That's gonna take way too long.
Yes.
But I love being able to do that for people. Like it super lights me up.
Yeah.
And the fact that one of the things also too that I really kind of leaned into over the years, like as I've gotten older, your body changes and all those things. And so I've been a string bean for most of my life.
Yes. And then,
so some of the things that I didn't really think about as it pertains to womanly weight, I now know and can see. And like, let me tell you, when I'm editing photos, I am so thoughtful and considerate.
Yes.
Because I don't want this little piece of fat that's coming out here to be the reason why you don't like that photo.
Exactly.
You look beautiful.
Exactly.
I'm gonna just bring
and
that in
real
for
life,
you.
no one sees it.
That's the thing.
In real life, no one sees it.
No one cares.
Yes.
So what I like to do is try to have you see yourself through the lens that everybody else sees.
Yes.
You. They're seeing the light within you. They're seeing how much you light up, how much joy you bring to them, to the world, all that.
Right.
Let's let that shine.
Yes.
In your photos.
Yes.
You and are not so your little imperfections.
Right. Yes. You are so great at that. Like I always tell people, I'm like, these are not super edited photos. Like when I'm like, these are the unedited ones. These are the ones where she was just like, real quick cleanup. I got these hours after the shoot. Like, and so it's, I love that about your work. I also think that, kind of to your point, like it's an equity matter. Like, there's just not a lot of access for women of color, as we've seen, Black and brown women on covers being presented in ways that we're like, how did this happen? Why is this is not what I've never seen this person, but I know that's not what they look like. Yeah. And so I think that what you offer and what's, a bit of a relief is that like, I know that my pictures are in good hands. I know that this experience is going to be thoughtful. And then once people start to work with you, they realize like, oh, she's taking care of every detail. Like she wants to see my outfits. She wants to know, because I can even remember saying, hey, I don't know what I'm wearing. I'm going to send you a few pictures and you'll go, I like this. We've done enough yellow. We have, we'll help you decide. So that we can start to get to
help you to think about the things that you may not think about.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at it from different eyes.
Exactly.
Like, how is this going to work if you sit?
Yes.
Or like, will this move well?
Yes.
Things like that that a lot of people don't typically think about when it comes to pictures.
You also capture a lot of like laughs and and I'm just here for us being seen as joyful beings, right? Like I want that. I think there's a lot of stereotypes and tropes attached to Black women, particularly, successful, smart, hardworking Black women. The idea that like your intentionality around just capturing our joy isn't like everywhere. Like it's like, yes, I want that, know? So it's one of my favorite things. Absolutely. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit, specifically because we just talked about joy. And I know that, you have been very open online about your mental health struggles. And I know that sometimes it is not a joy, even though you do a fantastic job pulling that out of other people. There are times where you just don't have it like for you. And it ultimately can show up in ways where you have to step away or take a break. And you've been very, very candid about it. And I think it's necessary and we value it. But I would love to just kind of hear what made you make that decision? Just because I think that people have a lot of stigmas, assumptions, add in that you're a Black woman, that is a whole other layer, right? About mental health. What made you decide this is something I would like to talk about?
Even though I don't share as much these days, way back when I did start sharing, I feel like this was, I don't know, like 2015, 2016, around then. It was another Black woman or other Black women that I was seeing that kind of inspired me to share as well.
Oh, okay.
And like, I would just feel so compelled seeing their stories and feeling like, oh, well, okay, well, I'm dealing with this too. It's not fun.
Yeah.
But in speaking to their community. And so it's like, okay, well, let me talk to my community. So that's kind of like how things started.
Yeah.
Over the years, it has definitely been helpful because it helps to kind of give I don't have everything together.
Yeah.
And I know
people don't expect the perfection.
And I know nobody does.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people have that facade and they kind of feel like stuck because no one knows, if you will, what it is I'm dealing with. And you feel like you can't really talk to people about it. But it helped to be open. And so even now that I don't share as much, my relationship with social media is touch and go.
Yes.
But the audience who has been there knows that.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, cool. She'll resurface when she resurfaces.
Yes, exactly.
And I'll share whenever I do share. But yeah, it's been really helpful to, it connects me to others. Mm-hmm. It has connected me to others. Yeah, just knowing that you're not dealing with your things alone.
Yeah. That absolutely. We talked about this a little bit off camera, and I just want to pull it into the conversation because I think it's so important. Mm-hmm. One of the things I really appreciate about you sharing when you are, and you may not do it like ahead of it. You may pop in the middle of it and be like, hey, no, I've been gone a while. I'll be back. Not now though. Right.
Right.
And so I appreciate that. And I also love that you do two really important things. One, I think you're a small business owner and you're establishing effective boundaries with your clients, boundaries with what people should be expecting of you out in the world that have not yet become clients. And so it's automatically, you're just being very transparent about like, hey, I'm going to handle this at the pace that works the best for me, which I think is rarely seen in entrepreneurial women. The other thing,
think about it that way,
that's it. That's what it is. It's boundaries. Like I know there are going to be times I'll shoot you a text and you'll be like a week later.
Yeah.
Right. But then there are going to be times I'll shoot you a text and you're on it. Mm-hmm. If it's a day we have a shoot, you're on it.
Oh yeah.
Like immediately. Right. And so like what I also love is just that point too, that I think sometimes people can frame mental health as though that means that like you aren't still responsible with deadlines. You aren't still thoughtful about folks' experience. You aren't willing to be considerate. And I'm like, that's kind of a disservice to folks who are navigating mental health challenges because it doesn't mean that like you can't do anything.
Correct. Yeah. Like it's funny that you mentioned that because I often feel like even when I'm down, like the only thing that's still running is that business. Yeah. Like I'm keeping those deadlines. I modify them if I need to, but I'm letting people know. Like I'm never going radio silent because communication is so important to me. You will know that as a client. Like you may get irritated with the amount of emails that come your way because I'm high touch.
Yes,
I want to be the one who reminds you of your responsibilities so that our work together is beneficial.
Right.
And then when the tables turn, when it's my responsibility to edit your photos, if I'm taking a little longer than planned, I'm gonna let you know that.
Yeah.
And give you the new, update for when to deal, or not when to deal, to when to expect. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like it be some days where not that I can't get out of bed, because you get out of bed, you do what you need to do. But that I'm not getting in front of that computer.
Right.
I'm not going in my office.
Right.
No, thank you.
Right.
I can't deal with that, but I got photos to do. So all right, let me see what this deadline is and let them know.
Yeah.
So yeah, communication is super duper important. And I think even more so, I can't say that. It's just important. I was going to say it's even more so when you are dealing with mental health issues, but maybe I will say that.
Yeah.
Because you have to let people know like when you're not all there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've learned, like just in my getting older, is that like you have to know your boundaries.
You do.
And your limitations and be modest. Like when you think about, okay, well, on a good day, you can do X, Y, and Z, but it's not a good day.
Right.
So you can just do X.
Right.
So it's like those are things that I have to learn from running myself into the ground.
Yeah.
And realizing, oh yeah, I don't want to do that no more.
Right.
And so I'm not.
I love that. I think it's super important that folks are open about mental health struggles. I have not been as open as I could be about some of my own. So I'm always paying attention to people who are, very candid. And I do think it comes back to that, like, I don't want to feel unprofessional to people, so. But
people appreciate that.
I was literally just about to say that. Like, listen, you personally sharing, I have appreciated. You know what I mean? Like, and to your point, it sets my expectations. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to get an immediate response for this, but I know I'm going to get a response.
You get it.
And so, it's incredible. And again, I can't say enough about the fact that even regardless of whatever mental health we are navigating, we are also in a situation where we can still be responsible with what is due.
Yeah.
And that isn't always as communicated. And I think that that's a shame because we don't want to make it seem like folks who are navigating mental health issues can't do anything. Yeah, it's just it's not fair.
Incorrect.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so there is a question that I always ask every guest at the end. So I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to give you a little prefacing first. Okay, so the show is called Guilty Privilege. The reason for that is because people tend to think of privilege as a thing to feel ashamed about or embarrassed by or defensive over. And in reality, our privilege really opens a lot of doors for us. And so what I would, like to do is kind of just shift that so people can see the value in privilege instead of it feeling like a reason to feel bad.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my question, which is, what is one privilege that you have that you refuse to feel guilty about?
So let me tell you that I knew this question was coming and I completely forgot to think about it.
That's okay. That means the answer will be real.
I knew I wanted to add some bomb.
That's what happens when you try to plan. Okay?
Right?
You're a planner. This is not a planning moment. Let's hear it.
Okay. Because we were talking about my work, I do not feel guilty about the way that I see things. And I say that because my creative eye is the reason for things being the way that they are. And that's a privilege. Yes.
In your case, especially. Because you're looking through a camera. You know what I mean? You know how often I see pictures of myself and I'm like, what? What are you looking at?
But that's the thing, though. It doesn't start in the camera.
Yes.
I have to see it in real life first to then frame it to then
yes.
So it's all here.
Yes. Yes. That's a privilege. That's it.
So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
This was
great. I'm so glad. I know I owe you photos. We're at the place now where I owe you photos. So, and what I mean by that is that she knows it's time for me to take pictures. So yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Danny.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
It was.